Hello and welcome to the University of Law. In today's video I am doing a bit of a historical review. This is Doctor Who: The Sirens of Time. Usually I tend to be reviewing and talking about stuff that's just come out. Maybe I'll do more of these if they're popular. I know I reviewed all of the Doctor Who televised stories last in 2023. Maybe I'll do the same for Big Finish at some point. But we're going back to where it all began, The Sirens of Time. The very first, and we can see that on the spine, number 1. The very first Big Finish Doctor Who audio drama. They'd done Beneath Summerfield before, but this was the very first Doctor Who one. It's where it all began 25 years ago this year. And to celebrate this month, we are getting the special edition, which obviously I'll be reviewing when it comes out. But I thought I'd go over the original release to celebrate the 25th anniversary and also kind of give a bit of a context for when I get onto my review. So, as always, I'm going to unbox it. Well, I say unbox, it's been unboxed for a few years now, but I'm going to open it up and we'll go through the contents. And then we can kind of talk about the story as we go. So let's get that open. So what I miss most actually about these older releases are the booklets. So disc 1 is parts 1 and 2, and then parts 3 and 4. And then we've got adverts for some of the Beneath Summerfield stuff and the novels at the time that were being released. And then we've got, I missed these, the Radio Times style listings for each of the stories, each of the episodes. We've got Sylvester McCoy in part 1, which I'll talk about in a minute, Peter Davison in part 2, Colin Baker in part 3, and all of the Doctors together in part 4. And then some photographs from the recording, which have since had the negative scanned in colour. And I'm hoping on the special edition that maybe they're going to present these drawings, these photographs in colour, in high definition scanned colour from the negatives, but we shall see. So here we have it. Where it all began, The Sirens of Time, starring Peter Davison, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy. And how did this one open? Was it a flip? It is a flip, yeah. And part 3 and 4 and disc 2. And then, yeah, Doctor Who magazine. So, for those who don't know, this came out in 1999, so 25 years ago. So, at this point in time, Doctor Who had been off air for 10 years. The TV movie had been 3 years earlier. We're seeing a 7th Doctor just before the TV movie. Interestingly, Sylvester McCoy had only been off screen for 3 years when this came out. Bearing in mind that David Tennant had, now let me get my maths right, he'd been off screen 5 or 6 years when he returned to Big Finish, so, and that felt quick, so it was even quicker. And then Jodie Whittaker, when they announced it, I'm trying to think now, she would have been off screen when they announced it for 2 years, and I'm guessing it'll be 3 years when they finally released, so a similar time to Sylvester McCoy then. So that's kind of, just for a bit of context for fans who weren't aware of that. So it's written by Nick Briggs, who obviously went on to become one of the lead creative forces behind Big Finish. And this is the start of something big. Everything that's come since comes from here. A lot of the crew who were working on this had done the fan audios in the decades previously. They'd obviously already been doing Beneath Summerfield stuff. Everything that Big Finish became, you can see here, but it's still growing. As with anything, you start off and you get better as you do it. It's still a solid production. However, you can see the seeds of what it was going to be. The story's great, the acting's great, but maybe it's just the historical nature of the story, you know, how important it was. But when I'm listening to it, I can't help but think of it as the first Doctor Who drama to be produced by anyone but the BBC. I know that the TV movie was a co-production, and how historic this was that we were finally getting Doctor Who again, you know, full cast Doctor Who, and obviously having these 3 original Doctors back. But yeah, I can't help when I listen to it, but just see them in the studio and think about how historic the moment was. I can't help but think that, and that kind of takes me out of it slightly. But obviously this was the early days of Big Finish. Obviously they were pioneering what we now know as the Big Finish method of recording, which is treating audio drama like film, you know, movies for the ears, which they certainly are nowadays. The whole idea of recording and then taken those files and then edited them with the sound design later. Whereas at the time, the commonplace method was that you would recreate all the effects in the studio as you were recording and record the effects live with the actors. And obviously it was pioneering. It's paid off, but obviously you can tell this is the pioneering days of that method. I think certainly that's why it's getting the special edition treatment. New sound design. I think the Colin Baker episode, part 3, I think in particular, I'm hoping will really benefit. The Peter Davison episode, spoilers, is something a submarine. I think that kind of worked a bit better, but certainly the finale I think worked really well, because that was a little bit more how can I phrase it? It's a bit more abstract, the setting. It did work for me, but I think the part 3 and to an extent part 1 I think will really benefit. The big thing about this is that the way it works, as I just explained, is that part 1, 2, and 3 tell the story from each Doctor's perspective. It's a bit like in the 5 Doctors, you see each Doctor get introduced into the story separately, don't you? And the same with Day of the Doctor, actually, you kind of get a scene of them on their own, and then they're all brought in together. What this does is, rather than doing it very quickly, like those 2 stories, and then bring them all together, you get a whole episode on each of the Doctors, I guess, reintroducing the audience to these Doctors after all their years away off screen, and then bring them all together for the finale. And I think it's not something that's often done in multi-Doctor stories, or usually because you want the Doctors together. But I think it works really well as a kind of rare one-off thing. The 4 Doctors kind of did it to an extent, where they had like a segment of a story each. That was a really creative way of doing the multi-Doctor story. But I think this is also a really creative way. I think by doing it this way, it's a creative, approach, a different approach, and I think I do think it works, and I do enjoy that, and I like the fact that there is a project that's done that. However, for the new edition, episodes 1, 2, and 3 will be cutting between the original 3 episodes, so you will get bits of 5, bits of 6, bits of 7, intercutting between the stories a little bit, more like what we do today. So we're still getting 3 episodes of the Doctor separately. So we're still getting that benefit, but it's doing it in a way that kind of cuts between them. I guess it's going to build up the energy of the story more, and more of a suspense, because we're cutting between these 3 different storylines and seeing how they converge at the end. So Nick Briggs has gone back. From what I've heard on the podcast, the original tapes, had they been scanned in any later, they might not have been salvageable. So it's been done just in time. I hope they've done it with some of the other stories. I know they haven't ruled out doing other special editions. I think certainly the second Big Finish release, I think Doctor would benefit from a special edition. I think after that, from the 3rd release onwards, in particular the 4th release, I think they were really solid, and they were definitely in the swing of things. But I think this will benefit from the special edition. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. Part 4 is pretty much as edited originally, but it'd just be nice to have Nick Briggs, the original writer and director, go back to it with a fresh 25 years later, all the experience that we've now gained in Big Finish, and recutting it to kind of be a bit more in line with what Big Finish has become. And hopefully I'll be able to listen to it now without the kind of mindset of imagining what it would have been like to have been there when Doctor was being recreated finally after all those years off air. But it's no different really to watching a Blu-ray special edition. I think having watched all of these season 25s, it would be great to now hear for the first time an audio drama getting the special edition treatment. But yes, so whole new sound design, new soundscapes, new score, I think new music. So I think it's going to be really exciting. And of course, from what I've seen, it's quite a thick set actually. I think it'll be the 2 discs. And I'm guessing a 3rd disc for the bonus documentary that they've compiled. And then, of course, if you get the CD or the download, you also get a download of this original cut as well, so you can compare them. But from what I gathered, it's very reasonably priced as a download on the Big Finish website, or I think you can get it free on Spotify, I believe, but don't quote me on that. I think you can. But yeah, what do you think of this story? Do you like Sirens of Time? Do you own it? Did you first hear it all the way back in the day? And what impact did it have on you finally hearing Doctor Who back in your ears after all those years? Are you getting the special edition? What are your thoughts? What other stories would you like to see get the special edition treatment? Do let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Look forward to speaking to you soon.